Welcome, everyone, to the Rise Up Rich podcast, which is actually being changed to the David F. Haas podcast. And I could probably do an entire podcast on why I'm changing the name of the podcast. But in short, I just want everything to be associated with my personal brand and not an actual company, because I never know where I'm going to go. You know, right now I'm a coach, helping people uncover what is blocking them from achieving their maximum potential. But you never know. In a few years, I might be helping people heal of cancer, and I don't want to be associated with just one kind of concept like Rise Up Rich. The podcast name has officially switched to the David F. Haas podcast. Really simple to find now. All my stuff, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, everything is all David F. Haas. So if you're looking for me, I'm really easy to find. Today's podcast, I'm alone. I did a podcast last week with Jaylyn, and she's a nurse who kind of made some realizations as she was in nursing that this wasn't helping people heal. And one of my most viewed podcasts, probably because it was controversial, because everyone is so torn on this issue. I think there's probably 50-50 of people that are scared of COVID and 50% of people that are frustrated with COVID. So today what I wanted to do is trying to have like a real bipartisan look at this thing and look at how I could help people on either side of the fence with this thing. So I'm going to start with the people that are in fear. And the reason I'm starting with the people that are in fear, because if I talked about the people that were frustrated first, the people that were in fear probably wouldn't listen. Okay, so I think that's number one, because as we're moving into second lockdown here in my area, where all businesses are closed, and the cases are higher than they've ever been, everyone is moving into the state of fear. So if you are a person that is in the state of fear, you're fearful of COVID, you think that you need to stay home, then this is what I want you to listen to, because I'm not trying to change you. That's the last thing I want to do. I don't want to change anyone, but I think for me, the thing that allowed me to have the greatest level of happiness and joy in my life was coming to the realization of what programs I had bought into. Now, I'm not going to tell you what programs you've bought into. You just have to have the awareness that you're buying into programs, right? All of us are buying into programs, and I can give you an example of that. It's a real practical, real simple example. When I was in my when was I? In my late 20s, I made the decision to switch to vegetarian, and I basically had enough information presented to me that I was like, okay, let me start doing my own research. And I started reading every book I could on health, and my business partner and mentor was guiding me. And I actually kind of was doing this research to kind of try and prove him wrong that you needed protein and all of these things that I had bought into. And the more and more research that I did, I talked about this in the last podcast, the more I came to the realization that, holy shit, I had been lied to my whole entire life, that I believed that you needed all of this protein in order to be strong and to be fit and to be healthy. And I believed that you needed to drink milk to have strong bones. And I just been lied to. I was also just completely clueless, though. I thought eating healthy was not ordering fries when I went to McDonald's and get a Big Mac, right? So I was completely unaware. And because I was unaware, my radar wasn't tuned into allowing myself to see the truth in any way, shape, or form. Okay, so I always talk about the radar or the tuning fork, which is like, when you're thinking about buying a new car, and all of a sudden you say, "Oh, I'm thinking about buying a Jeep," and you never saw Jeeps before, but then all of a sudden you start seeing Jeeps everywhere. Okay, it's because you tuned your consciousness into the field of seeing Jeeps. And so once I tuned my consciousness into the field of what was actually healthy for me, I started receiving a bunch more information. So just for the time that you're listening to this podcast, let's just assume that you've bought into a program that COVID is going to kill you. Okay? So you at the end of listening to this podcast, you can go back to believing that it is, right? But just assume for a second that COVID's going to kill you, and that's only a program that you bought into. The fear is not really real, right? Like, how amazing would that be to be free of the fear of COVID? And that's a possibility for you. And I know I can already, as I'm saying this, I'm tuning into the resistance of everyone that's listening. So maybe this is going in the wrong direction. But just for the next 10 minutes, let's just assume that you have brought into a program. And let's just assume that COVID has just been something that has been blown up by the media. And maybe just start to look at things from a different standpoint. So what can you do to pull yourself out of fear? So let's first tune into what the fear really is, right? And when I tune into that, I think, okay, the fear is that there's something out there, meaning the virus, that is going to come and get me and attack me. And what's it going to do when it attacks you? It's going to kill you. Okay, whoa, there we go. We're getting right to the root, that this thing is tuning into our deepest, most at the base of everything is our fear of death. If we're scared of not having enough money, at the root of not having enough money is that we're not going to be able to eat, we're not going to be able to have shelter, and we're going to die. So you can see how powerful this fear can be, right? And it'll cause governments to lock down businesses. You know, my business alone, we've lost probably over $250,000 just in the last year because of COVID, right? So it's like, it's putting people out of business. It's doing all of these things, and it's all because of fear, right? And when you're in the state of fear, it's paralyzing, right? If a mouse sees a cat, right, that mouse might stay frozen in that corner after seeing a cat for like a day, right? That's the power that fear has over us. And you can see, now that you've come to this realization that maybe this is a program that I bought into, you can see how the media is continuing to just propagate that fear and keeping us like paralyzed mice. And when we're like paralyzed mice, we are unable to see anything else besides that fear. Okay, so now that we've become aware that we are in the state of fear, right? And believe me, I'm not. This is not judgment. I was there. I allowed myself to get caught up in that state of fear when this whole thing started coming out in the beginning. Right? I was like, holy geez, I was in Florida at the time. I got to get back home. Like, this thing is going out of control. And then finally, I was able to come to the realization that, oh, I'm buying into a program that there's something out there that is coming to get me. And if it gets me, I'm going to die. Right? So then I tuned into my fear of death. And then because I've already been able to, I think, do a lot of work with transcending the fear of death, I then started to be able to be like, okay, let me look at what's really happening. Oh, there's nothing out there that is going to come and get me, right? This whole thing is about protecting your own personal health and well-being, okay? So if you did one or two things differently in your life right now, you would dramatically reduce the risk, like by like 100 times, of having any detrimental symptoms from COVID. So what are some examples of those one or two things? And this is going to help pull you out of the fear, okay? And this is not like, I'm not a doctor, right? I'm just someone that was able to take a look back, and because my tuning fork is tuned into like seeking out the truth, I surround myself with people that allow me to see that truth, and I'm exposed to more information that allows myself to see that truth. So that's all you got to do, is just tune your tuning fork in and saying, maybe this whole thing isn't exactly what I think it is, right? And I know there's resistance to doing that, because you see the news, and then you're watching the news, and the hospitals are getting overrun, and oh, there's this many more cases, and this thing's out there, and it's coming to get us, right? And it's like, okay, so now that we're tuned into the fact that maybe this is a program that I bought into, like, you know, so let me circle back for a second. So when I became vegetarian, I came to the realization that I had bought into all of these programs that I needed meat and all these things. And then I was like, oh, I've been lied to my whole entire life. The 5 basic food groups, or whatever they are, the 4 food groups, I can't remember. But they're all like just propagating for me to eat more meat so that I can, the dairy and the cattle and beef industry can make more money, right? And I was like, oh, wow, that's unbelievable. And actually, meat is not even, a good thing for your health. It actually can increase your risk of heart disease, cancer, diabetes, and this is all things that have been proven multiple times. Dr. Colin Campbell is this guy that did this China diet study. It was the largest study ever done of people and what they eat. Something like 270,000 people he studied. And at the end of this gigantic study, he basically said he was a meat eater. And he became a vegetarian. He was like, if you eat more meat, you're going to be way more susceptible to heart disease, cancer, illnesses, these types of things. So I was like, okay, whoa. But then I came to the realization, this is the part that you meat eaters are going to like, that vegetarianism in a whole is also a program. Okay. So I had basically substituted one program for another. And now I can see that I bought into the program of vegetarianism as well. So now I'm starting to look even further. And that doesn't mean I'm not going to go out and start eating meat again, because now there's an ethical thing for me as well. But at least I'm going to be open to seeing the truth, right? And I actually believe now probably one of the healthiest diets I think that you could do is a plant-based diet where you still eat some fish and you still eat some dairy every now and then, right? Like small amounts, but like I think some raw cheese is okay here and there. And I think fish twice a week is probably really good for you because of the omega-3s and all that kind of stuff that's in there. But I'm not going to do it because of the ethical reasons for me. But at least I'm open to seeing that the truth is there, right? So, and at least I was open to something that I was my essence, my being. Like I think on my personal Instagram page it says vegetarian in it, right? Like that's who I was. It was who I became. But I was able to see that I had bought into that program. So that's all I'm asking you here to do today is like really take a look of what you're buying into. And if you're watching CNN every day and you're consumed by the news and you're consumed by the numbers and this thing's out there to come and get you, just take 1 second. What do you got to lose to say, maybe this isn't real? And I'm not saying that COVID isn't real. Maybe the fear isn't real, right? There are 300 trillion viruses in you right now, okay? And it's like, it's not about what's out there. It's about what's going on inside of ourselves, okay? So I have a friend of mine that got COVID and she got tested and got COVID. She was really sick. And it was basically essentially a really bad flu for her, like one of the worst flus she said she ever had. But now they won't retest her, right? This is government protocol. They won't retest her because COVID is in her system for the next 150 days is what they're saying, but it's dormant. So you can see how testing is just creating this mass hysteria because even the dormant virus that is probably already in all of us, the dormant virus, people are testing positive for it. And what happens when you get a positive test? Well, now that's another case. And when there's another case, what happens? There's more fear. We got to lock down. We got to shut this thing down. There is no preventing the spread of coronavirus. That's what I want you to come to the realization. We cannot prevent the spread of coronavirus. It is going to spread. Everyone eventually is probably going to get it. Whether you have zero symptoms or really extreme symptoms, you are probably going to get coronavirus, okay? So then you're saying, well, yeah, but we gotta protect the people that are most vulnerable because the hospitals are gonna get overrun. Well, here's the thing, the hospitals get overrun every year at this time, right? In 2017, we had one of the worst flu seasons of the year we've ever had, and the hospitals were overrun. The only difference being was that the media wasn't reporting it like they are coronavirus right now, right? It's like we were experiencing the same problems, and I'm sure that nurses can attest to this, and doctors. They remember that flu season that was just terrible, and I can't remember if it was 2017 or 18. I think it was 17. It was just terrible, and the hospitals were overwhelmed. Right? But the only difference being is that we didn't get put into this mass hysteria, right? And we're locking down the world, okay? So this is the same thing that happens every single year. So the only thing that we need to realize is that we bought into the fear. What is the fear and how does it look? Okay, next thing is to tune into that fear and allow ourselves to feel it fully and tune into what it is exactly we are fearful of, right? Just allowing yourself to ask the question, why, right? Why am I so fearful of the coronavirus? Right? And then maybe you'll come to I don't want to spread it to people that are vulnerable. Okay, great. Okay. So if you don't want to spread it to people that are vulnerable, then just make sure that you're doing whatever you can for your own health to make sure that you're not spreading it, right? And if you feel sick, don't go visit grandma and grandpa, right? It's literally that simple. And then you can do a few things to really dramatically reduce your risk of having any negative symptoms at all from experiencing coronavirus and potentially even spreading it. Because like we say, like the government has told us, it could be dormant in your system. My friend is able to go back to work, right? She has coronavirus in her, but she can go back to work, okay? So these are the things that we're buying into, that every single case is infectious and is going to infect other people, and if you go outside you're going to infect people and you're irresponsible. And you can see how that fear is just driving this whole animal, driving all of us, where we're calling in on our neighbors saying they had more people at their house, and the police are having to give out fines to businesses that have been freaking completely debilitated by this thing, right? It's like, okay, so what can you do? What can you do to dramatically improve your health? Well, you can start by increasing your vitamin D, like major. Like you could probably go up to like 10,000 units a day, meaning it's like, I think in Canada they give you like one pill and it's 1,000 units. You could be taking like 10 of those a day, right? Because our vitamin D in our area is just really low. So we can dramatically increase our overall level of vitamin D. Okay. My mentor, Andrew, also has released a course called healerman.com. And in that course, you can get to the root of what real health looks like, right? And it is at the physical level. It's just about how to be healthier overall. And that course is like, it's more beneficial than a med school degree, because it gets to the truth of what it really takes to be healthy, right? And it's all about focusing on what's happening inside our own body, right? There's nothing out there that's coming to get you. It's like if you keep your own health in check, you're going to be fine. But understanding what real health is and really bringing awareness to what programs you've bought into. And I'll tell you, I bought into all of them. Like I am as guilty as anybody that I'm speaking to right now, that I bought into every single program out there, right? So the second thing that we can do is we can exercise. We can get outside, right? And this is all the things that they're telling us to not to do. They're closing the gyms, but just by actually moving and getting outside. And the other thing you could do is you could also take hydrogen pills. All right, this is there's all kinds of research that this is what they did in China, that they gave everyone hydrogen gas when they were infected by this thing, and it dramatically reduced the illness and the infection rate of this thing. So you can buy like little hydrogen pills and you throw them in water, and this is all in the Healer Man course. So I really suggest that you take this course. You throw them in water and then you breathe in the gas and then once it's done, then you drink the hydrogen water. This has been shown to dramatically improve your overall level of health and reduce your risk of having a serious infection. So I think what I'm trying to get at is, instead of just being in fear and allowing the media to control every decision that you make, why don't you start looking at some decisions that you can make to help improve your own health, right? And if you start taking control over your own health, you're going to stop passing the blame to the coronavirus that it's out there and it's going to come and get me. And you're going to start taking responsibility for your own health and learning everything that you need to learn to be as healthy as possible. Okay. And this came out in one of my first podcasts, right? Where I was like, the first time we went into lockdown, part 1, the first thing I did was like, what am I doing to protect my own immunity? What am I doing good and what am I doing bad? Right. And at the time I was like, drinking like 10 pops a day. Coke Zero was my drug of choice. I'm like, well, that's not good for my immunity. I better cut that out, right? And then just looking at everything else I was doing, overeating, eating too much sugar, whatever it may be, but it was just like about looking at my own internal health. And I would like to see in the comments, obviously just try and keep it as nice as possible. You can speak your truth as long as it's with love and compassion, right? But if you're on the other side of this thing, what are the arguments? Because I've kind of tuned them out so much, right? So what are the arguments? What are the big concerns that are happening with you, right? Ultimately, what I want you to take away from this first part of the podcast is you've bought into a program. We've all bought into programs, right? Maybe the program that I bought into is that all health starts within, but I mean, that could be the case, and I'm open to accepting that and looking at the truth. But eventually, the deeper you go down the rabbit hole, the truth will be revealed, and there will be there is no program when you're connecting to the truth. The truth is always there, but we have to learn how to unprogram in order to see it. Right? That's ultimately what spiritual growth is all about. It's about coming to the awareness, and this is the word awareness is key. Coming to the awareness of what you've bought into. And if you are unaware, then you're essentially asleep, right? And so hopefully this podcast, maybe all it takes is this one question, whatever the biggest fear is that you have of coronavirus, just ask a question, and the question is all of this fear real? right? And then just the awareness that this question, then having this question will begin to tune your tuning fork into the truth, and it'll start moving towards you in all kinds of ways. And so some other things that you can do is, so you can check out healerman.com and you can buy his course. It's $100. It's literally completely undervalued. You can check out Dr. Zach Bush. This guy's like a triple board certified physician. I have no idea what that even means, but it sounds really good. But you listen to this guy talk, and this guy, he understands viruses better than anybody that I ever met, right? Not met. I never met the guy, but anybody I've ever listened to. And when you hear this guy speak, you just go, holy shit, like this guy knows his shit. He knows everything about viruses, and he basically, he'll speak the truth. I'm not even going to try and paraphrase what he says. Just Google Dr. Zach Bush, and you're going to find all kinds of information. And then the last thing, just as a reminder, is just to tune into the fear, right? Just be aware that you're in the state of fear. That's all you need to do. And just by creating the awareness that you're in the state of fear will begin to pull you out of it. That's all you need to do, right? And when we're in the state of fear, we're like that mouse in the corner. We can't do anything. So all we got to do is become aware that we're paralyzed in the corner, and then we might start coming out and looking around the room for the truth. Okay, good. So that's if you're in the state of fear. So now we're going to move to stage 2. If you have zero fear of coronavirus, but you're in the state of frustration, right? Anger, that we're essentially living in a communist country right now, right? We're completely locked down. I can't open up my business. We can't go see our friends and family over the holidays. And if you do, you're going to get fined. Like, the fines are ridiculous. I think if you host a Christmas party, your fine's like $10,000 or something for the host. It's absolutely insanity that we're living in right now. And it's all based on the fact that there's a virus out there that is coming to get us. Okay, so how do you not get wrapped up in this thing? Because I tell you, I've gotten wrapped up multiple times. And I think for everyone that is frustrated, and everyone that's angry, and everyone that is basically tuning into the fact, like, how can people not see what's really going on? That's really what I see. You know, that's the frustration for me, is like, how are people just not seeing the truth? The truth is that nothing is going on. The same shit happens every single year. Old people die. There's this one crazy thing about old people, is that they tend to die a lot more than younger people, right? And now that might sound like it's insensitive, but the truth is that every year during this time, our vitamin D levels get lower. We get around the holidays, we're eating and drinking more, we're eating more sugar, we're drinking more alcohol, right? And that compromises our immune system, and it makes it weaker, right? And so now if you get exposed to a virus that has a level of consciousness of 0, meaning it has no thought, it's not thinking, I'm going to go get this person, right? It has a level of consciousness of 0. If your immune system is weak, or if you have autoimmune disease or something along these lines, yes, you could experience negative side effects, and maybe you could die, right? So with that awareness, the thing that we want to do is that we want to just be able to look within and say, okay, well, what am I doing, right? And we already covered that. It's like, what am I doing for my own personal health? And that will let go of the little fear aspect of it, but coming to the realization that this is what happens every year, except for the fact that now we have the media involved in this whole entire thing, and they're just blowing this thing up. It's like every day you turn on the news, oh, more cases. We were just talking before we started the podcast here. It's like 196 cases. And it's like, so what? So what? It doesn't mean anything. The amount of cases don't mean anything. And all it is doing is, like, in my last podcast with Jalen, I played the clip from Dr. Hodkins there, and he's like, all testing should stop right now, because all it's doing is driving mass hysteria, right? So the purpose of this podcast, though, of this section, is how do you not get wrapped up? And so then you just want to tune into the teachings of, like, the great avatars of our time, right? Jesus, Krishna, Buddha, Gandhi would be like an example that comes to mind. He's like, be the change you want to see in the world, right? And Dr. Hawkins would be like the closest thing that we had to, like, an enlightened being on Earth. And he basically said, you just want to take a step back and observe it all, right? You don't want to get wrapped up in this whole entire thing. Just observe and watch it all play out. Now, that doesn't mean, though, that you don't have to stand up for the truth, right? So you can still speak the truth and stand up for the truth, and not just follow along like lemmings, right? You can still stand up for the truth, but just doing it with love and compassion and understanding for all of the people that are stuck in the state of fear and all the people that are completely consumed by this thing, right? We don't want to approach those people with anger and disrespect, because it's just going to drive more mass hysteria, and they're going to think, oh yeah, there's those anti-maskers or whatever people are being called, whatever this division is. There's the people that don't care, and I think that's the exact opposite. I think people that are tuned into the truth about what's really going on and aren't consumed by the fear are doing the exact opposite. They're trying to basically awake the people up that are in fear, and they're trying to say, hey, like Mouse, you're paralyzed in the corner. Like, just come on out. Like, let me just show you what's really going on. And I think that's where it's coming from. But I do feel the frustration and the anger and the idea that our freedom is being taken away, right? And in some ways it is. But Viktor Frankl is this guy that wrote this book called Man's Search for Meaning. And Viktor Frankl was this guy that was in the Nazi concentration camps. And ultimately, the whole entire book is how, you can take everything away from me. You can take away my possessions, my ability to, run a business, my ability to see my friends and family. But you can't take away freedom, because that's from within, right? And this is like a big cornerstone of what I teach for people, is that freedom doesn't come from adding anything to your life. And that's why we want success, is because we want freedom, right? But it's like freedom exists from within. And learning how to tune into that truth. So if you're a person that's on the frustration side, you've already tuned into the truth. You've realized that you've bought into programs, and you realize other people are buying into programs. So the program now that you've bought into, that you need to transcend, is the program that someone else can take away your freedom. Okay? So tuning into that truth and getting to the root of why you don't feel free right now, right? And that you're potentially passing the blame. And when I say you, I mean me as well. Passing the blame to the government, to the virus, to people that don't understand. All that blame passing is giving your freedom away, right? So ultimately what we want to do is we want to bring it back. It's never about what's going on out there. It's always about what's going on in here. And that goes for taking care of your own health, but also goes for taking care of your own emotional health, mental health, and spiritual health. Okay, so if you're frustrated and angry, then that's triggering something inside of you, right? And we want to get to the root and become free of that, so we're no longer affected by that anger, by that frustration, and that's how we have freedom, no matter what things are taken away from us. Okay, so I think ultimately it's a level of understanding, it's a level of looking within to find out exactly what it is that's triggering you so much about the government taking away. And the answer is not like, well, they're not letting me run my business, or they're not allowing me to see my friends and family. It's something deeper, right? It's at a deeper level, the belief that the government can take away your freedom, and underneath that belief is something else. And there's a belief system there that the government's out to get you, or whatever it may be. I don't know. I'm just trying to give you some examples here. But we just want to tune into that, because that is a program that we've bought into, and we need to become free of that. And then secondly, I think just adding the compassion and understanding for where everyone else is at. We don't want to be fighting with people that are against us, right? We want to just see where they're at with love and compassion. We don't want to try and change a single thing. If they come to us and they want to see the truth, then we can give it. But we're not trying to argue with them. And see, that's why I know when I release this podcast, there's going to be a bunch of positive comments, and there's also going to be a bunch of negative comments. And I'm not going to reply to these negative comments. I'm just going to say, hey, thank you so much for actually taking the time to listen. I know that was hard. Thanks for taking the time to maybe potentially see that you might be buying into something. But if someone doesn't want to expand their level of consciousness, I'm not going to try and force it on them. That's their own karma, and they need to work through that karma on their own. So I guess these are the understandings that we can have to help pull us out of the frustration that we're feeling if we're on the other side of these things. Okay? So yeah, I think I'm going to wrap it up there. Ultimately, well, actually, no, I'm not going to wrap it up there. I forgot about one other thing I wanted to do. So now that we are moving into the second lockdown, we want to just take an inventory of what it is that we want to do during this lockdown, right? we have more time, we have more freedom right now, ironically, because we're not having to go into work, or we can't go to restaurants, we can't go to stores, we can't visit family and friends, because if we do, we're going to get fined. So the question being is, what is it you're going to do with this time? Either you're going to get consumed by the fear or the frustration, or you're going to take back your power, take back your responsibility, and take back your control, and start looking at how you can unprogram and how you can improve your life. So like the last time that this lockdown happened, I was like, I got into amazing shape. I was eating healthier than I have ever eaten. I was reading more books than I had ever read. I was just constantly expanding, so I could further unprogram, right? So that would ultimately be the question that I would have for you, is like, don't allow these negative emotions and thoughts, low states of consciousness, to pull you down and allow you to get sucked in. Because I can see it happening with everybody. Everybody's getting sucked into either the fear or to the frustration, and you want to just become aware that you're in that state, so that you can get out of it, right? And then if you get out of that state, or even just if you become aware of that state, then you can make the best of this lockdown. So don't allow it to consume you, whichever side that you're on, and hopefully the truth will eventually be revealed and our lives will be back to normal. I know that it will happen at some point. It's probably happening a lot slower than most people want it to, but it will happen, and our lives will be back to normal, not the new normal, the normal. And like there's a bigger plan here at stake, at play, and I think it might be just having people becoming aware that they have been buying into a program. It's literally like the Matrix. It's like, do you want to take the blue pill or the red pill? Like, do you want to stay asleep or do you want to wake up? And I think that this is creating a massive movement to people waking up, even though it doesn't feel like that. Thanks for taking the time to listen. If you haven't already, click that subscribe button. If you have a comment, if you have anything negative, positive, I'd love to hear it, because it helps me tune into what everyone's feeling, so that I can just do my part to try and help as many people as possible. Join us again every Wednesday for the David F. Haas podcast.